This is something to talk about, and I'm Reed Price. I'm the director of the Senior Center, and we have a number of folks from other nonprofit groups here, three in fact. Brianna Kosowitz from the Bainbridge Island Historical Museum, and Kristin Tollefson from Bainbridge Island Museum of Art, and Kaitlin Chester from Kitty Moo. And we are all in the nonprofit world trying to spin with the times of COVID and try to keep our programs going. And I know that all three of you have had outreach in your museums. You've tried to do things to open the doors a little bit or engage people, not only virtually, but physically. And I'm hoping that you might share a little bit about that today. And then before we go, you can also talk a little bit about some of the virtual efforts and ongoing efforts that you might be involved with. So, Brianna, do you mind if we start with you and the Bainbridge Island History Museum? I guess you just started to welcome visitors last week, right?
Yep, that's right. So a couple of weeks ago, the governor put out a in sort of a surprise for the museum community, put out new guidelines for museums to reopen to the public in phase 2. So he sort of changed where museums fit in the different phases. And I think we were all really excited to hear that, but also caught slightly by surprise. So I know I worked pretty closely with BIMA to make sure that we timed up our efforts to reopen around the same time. And so we reopened our doors on Friday last week to the public. At the Historical Museum, we're only able to do a partial reopening. So we're Friday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're a reduced schedule. And that's mainly because of our capacity. We have just 5 staff, and some of us are actually 65 plus. So it just means we have less people who are able to manage being on site. And of course, our volunteers, we're not going to be able to welcome them back, unfortunately, until phase 4, in large part. So it's just been a constant kind of shifting, trying to figure out how it all works together. But it was amazing to see to see visitors back in the museum on Friday. It was just like coming back to life, and it felt just like such a fantastic moment. And to see people excited to be there and to be able to see what we have and to go through the museum, it just was really fulfilling. And I think a positive note amidst everything that's been going on. So I encourage you to stop by the museum. We have a lot of things that we did while we were closed. So we've made some changes to our permanent exhibit. We added some new pickleball material, if you're interested in that history. And then we have a temporary exhibit up right now called Her Vote, Her Story. And it celebrates the ratification of the 19th Amendment and women's suffrage.
Now, were you planning to, that was just going up, I think, when COVID hit. And I think that we talked a little bit, we got a tour in March or something. So you've just basically put it on hold till now, right?
Yeah, because, so many people haven't had an opportunity to see it. So we decided to extend that exhibit through the end of the year to give people an opportunity to come in and see it in person. So yeah, a lot of people haven't been able to see it. So I encourage you to come in and check it out. It's a really great exhibit.
And it sounds like you got a pretty good response your first weekend.
Yeah, so I should mention, given our small size of our site, of our building, we have a max capacity of 10 people, which is really small. So given those limitations of the max capacity, we had a great turnout. We had 70 people total for the weekend. But there were times when we reached that max capacity and we had to have people wait outside until we could filter them in. Everyone's required to wear a face mask upon entering the museum, which is nothing new. And we, of course, have all the hand sanitizer everywhere, and we're doing all the cleaning protocols. And we've removed a number of our tactile hands-on elements in the exhibit. So those are removed. And we're doing cashless transactions at the front desk. So we have just credit card.
Great. Kristin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on at BIMA?
Okay. Well, we, as Brianna mentioned, we synchronized our openings, so we also opened on Friday. And I love this game of kind of same but different that we are engaged in on the island, where we have a similar constraint with our volunteer pool that has been so integral to running the museum. And so during the time that we were closed, we were forced to reimagine. I'm sorry, I'm going to use a lot of jargony words, overused words. We were forced to think about how our reception desk operated, because that's been staffed entirely by volunteers since I started the volunteer program when the museum opened. So we hired some part-time greeters, and they're being trained. They were being trained on the ground on the weekend. And we also have a full-time or a part-time cleaner who goes around the museum and cleans, really. They're also being trained in interacting with guests so that they'll provide a more full experience as well. Our doors were open all weekend. We probably averaged around 125 people a day, which is a significantly lower number than regular. But I did read some statistic that suggested that on reopening, museums should see about 5 to 25% of their regular capacity. So that's within that range. We also had exhibits that were just going up and never saw attendance to see them in real life. So the Fiber 2020 show upstairs and the Peregrine O'Gormley show downstairs saw a lot of traffic. Not a lot of adjustments were made while we were closed to that, except for one major piece that was installed in Peregrine's show that he was able to complete and interestingly sell before it came to the museum. So there's a monumental piece right in the middle of the gallery that's been drawing a lot of attention. We also have, as you may know, a museum store and the bistro, and the differences there are that the museum store went to an online platform while we were closed. So they've been they've been reopening with staff as well. So they have this kind of two-pronged approach to what they're doing. And the bistro will be opening to the public probably in a week and a half-ish. I don't have a firm date for that, but those are parts of our museum where we'll see people either come directly into the store just to use the store or come to the bistro and linger. So there have been special considerations for both of those. I guess the other difference is that we haven't had to turn anyone away, but we do have a more thorough check-in at the front desk, also masks required, and a walking path through the museum that's designated. So rather than just people scattering, they're directed to go up the elegant staircase that's in the front, go upstairs, and then come down the back stairs, just to make sure that we're not, that we're really trying to encourage people to be mindful of social distancing while they're there. We don't have any programs going on in the museum. That, again, will not happen until later, but we will be, I'm meeting with Steve Parsons, who's been our meditation facilitator, tomorrow, and we are going to very quietly, just together, if anybody's interested, feel free to contact me, launch a Zoom meditation next Thursday morning and see how that goes with him. So just putting our toe back into programs that would still continue to be virtual.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, keep us apprised of that, and we're happy to, as possible, share this information with our members as well. So, Kaitlin, I understand that you've been doing a lot of virtual outreach at Kitty Moo, but what's going on right now in person? Anything?
Yes, today we just launched our preschool program. So right now I am in our art room at the museum, and downstairs we have 6 preschoolers that we welcomed this morning with no tears, who all came in, and we are doing a contactless pickup and drop off. So parents stay outside the museum and only staff and the kids are allowed inside. They're staying on our first floor. They are excellent mask wearers, and they're keeping their social distance, with most of the preschool happening outside in our side yard. And then, of course, they can't resist coming in to play inside as well. So with some inside time too. So we just hired an excellent preschool teacher, and then one of our staff members is the assistant as we grow the preschool program up to 8 to start, and maybe 12 by the end of the year. Last week, we just finished up our summer camps. So we were able to do 3 summer camps over the summer. We had them in 3-week sessions, limiting them to 8 children with an instructor and an assistant. And that was a way we were actually able to utilize a volunteer over the summer, which was great to get to use, bring in the community that way, even if it was just one person. She's been a volunteer with us for many, many years. And then one part of my job that is really, really fulfilling that I love to do is we've been working on our STEM boxes and at-home learning that doesn't include any screen time. And so we have 6 really robust STEM boxes with 8 to 10 activities. And then we have mini boxes as well. And then we're about to start launching a STEM subscription for kindergarten through 2nd grade learning to supplement no screen time at home for those extra activities that parents might want to be doing with their kids during this very different school year.
Yeah. So have you just talk a little bit more about those mini boxes and STEM boxes? What kinds of activities do they involve?
So the ones that we have right now, the 6 big boxes are space, pirates, art, literacy, early literacy, eco explorers, and of course I'm forgetting the last one right now, but we have one more. And then the mini ones we have a Wild About Water box, and we're working on the Wonders of Weather that we're hoping to get out later this month. So that's what we're working on. We've been really lucky to get funding from Port Madison Enterprises and Puget Sound Energy so that we can be delivering these boxes to children in need, both on Bainbridge and on the Kitsap Peninsula. So we're partnering up so that we can get these to kids throughout Kitsap and on Bainbridge Island as well.
So are they a kit that then somebody takes home and does some exercises and activities with, and they're exhausted? And so, I mean, it's kind of like a take-home activity box, and you work through it?
Yeah, there's similar. So there's a lot of these sorts of boxes that exist that people might be aware of, like there's a Kiwi box and whatnot. But the difference is that everything we do in our boxes are activities we've done with our kids at camp. So it was an opportunity for families to get to do the camp experience who maybe didn't feel comfortable sending kids to camp this summer. And so it was our way of letting kids get to do camp and experience camp at home. So we called them camp at home boxes. And so it was a really fun way to get to extend that to people further in the community who maybe weren't ready to leave their bubble quite yet.
Mm-hmm. And I know, Kristin, you talked to us before about the idea of art in action and trying to engage people not in person in art activities. Have you found a lot of engagement with that this summer as well?
We have, and I think similar to what Kaitlin's saying, what we're finding is that a mix of virtual, both pre-recorded and live, and as possible in-person socially distanced is really that's the most beneficial for folks. I'm so impressed that this group keeps showing up every time I'm on the screen. It's really great to see dedicated folks who are interested in showing up in this way. I think that a lot of people, and to Kaitlin's point, it's still really important to engage with the real world, the tactile, sensory world. And so anything that this virtual business can do to amplify or connect people that way has really been the most successful for us.
So when you're working on a project, do you help people with trying to identify materials that they might need, since you're not actually sending out the box, you're just saying assemble one?
And so the question directed to me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
yeah.
Kristin.
Yeah, we are really trying to focus on materials that people may already have around the house, and really trying not to focus so much on specialty materials. But to Kaitlin's point, we're also going to be launching a kit program, but it's going to be very specifically directed to a couple of elementary schools that we work with in our field trip program, who are in the Bremerton School District, and who qualify as high poverty schools. So we'll be making kits and working in partnership with teachers who have used the art museum as a field trip resource. And we also are going to be piloting. A lot of our programs really bookend the youth programs and the adult programs. So a lot of our approaches to learning are similar between the two age demographics. So we're going to be piloting our art kit program with our creative aging program. So I know that the school program will follow what we do with creative aging. And to answer your question, in that case, we will be providing specialty materials like nice color, watercolor paper, or nice watercolor sheets that you can use. It's like an ink saturated paper that operates the same as a palette, things that are easily flat packed and sent. So we will be piloting that.
Great. Brianna, I know that you also have been trying to connect before the COVID shut down and now is slowly reopening the museum. What kinds of programs has the Historical Museum been doing as far as outreach?
Yeah. So we've been, trying to embrace this as one of the positive things about being shut down, is that it kind of forced us to get creative and find new ways to innovate and really, honestly, just try out new things. And so we've done a number of different streams. One is we took our regular in-person program series, so our History Museum at the library and our monthly collaboration with the Senior Center, and I took those virtual via Zoom. So we still have our panel discussions with the library, and then the monthly oral history format with the Senior Center virtual. And then we created more emails. So we have increased our communication strategy, and we've been trying to share out collection finds. So pulling things out of our collection that we think are really interesting or that we've discovered, and sharing those over email and social media with our audience. We've also launched a blog, the museum's first ever blog, and that's located on our website. And that's where we kind of explore the museum's values and the why behind our work, and we try and share that out with our readers. And then our curator, Marilee Mostoff, launched a video series called The Curious Curator, and she goes around the island kind of being curious about our history and interviewing other people and different sites on the island to learn about Bainbridge history. And so those are short videos that live on our website, and that's been really successful. We've seen a big positive reaction to all of those content streams.
Great. There's a question here from Sheila. Brianna, have you tried to use any of the old day camp materials that were utilized a few years ago?
We haven't, but that's a great idea, Sheila, and definitely something we can explore if this continues to stretch on. But what I just described is pretty much at capacity for right now, and we're going to see how those things continue to evolve. And then, we will definitely be looking at our children's programming and our, school tours. Right now, all of that's been on pause, but we'll be evaluating that and figuring out what we want to do going forward as we see how the pandemic, stretches on.
One of the things that, here's a question from Carolyn. Sorry, it disappeared there. Has Marilee done a Curious Curator for the Port Blakely area, like the Powerhouse or the Villages?
I don't think she has. She has a long, long list of places that she wants to go on the island. So I will make sure that that's added to her agenda for eventual video.
Yeah, and that actually raises the question that I was heading toward, which I am asking of all of you, that I've kind of realized at the Senior Center, is that we are learning some new skills that I don't think that we'll let go of. Are you thinking that there might be some aspects of what we've learned in this distant time that might be part of your program, even when we have when we're able to get back together in close proximity?
I would say absolutely for us. I mean, we won't necessarily be able to keep up with the frequency that we've been putting out a lot of this new virtual content, but we will definitely hang on to the successful elements of it. And the Curious Curator is a good example of that, because I think it's really, interesting for our audience. And then also just the overall communication strategy. And that's helped us really get our grips on that.
Kaitlin or Kristin, care to comment on that?
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, agree also that we will be continuing to do programs, as many as makes sense virtually. I think I had an interesting conversation with the woman who's the director of education at the Nasher Museum at Duke University last week, and they have a robust program with folks with early stage memory loss, and had been running this program once a month before COVID, and have upped the frequency to 3 or 4 times a month because it's so much easier to convene in a virtual space. And so she was talking about how that actually will continue. They will be able to train people to co-host that, and that's got me thinking about our early stage memory loss program as well, and how to make that accessible. I think we were hitting a capacity with regard to space at the museum with that program anyway. So this may inadvertently offer some kinds of solutions that we hadn't really anticipated.
We had to get very creative about how we wanted to provide content for children, especially during the height of quarantine. So we came up with a few programs like Wiggle Wednesday, where I was doing yoga videos for kids, and Storytime Sunday. And these are things that, like Brianna said, I'm not sure how many we'll be doing going forward, but definitely things that we realize these are really fun ways to reach families and children. And our video content was never where we wanted it to be in the past, and it got us to get really creative. And I think if there has to be, you got to find silver linings, and this has definitely been one for us. And so as I evaluate what our social media and what our communication stream will be like going forward, I'm really looking at analytics and what was the most successful to try to figure out which of those video programs to keep going.
Yeah, we were in a position where we didn't have the luxury of, or maybe we were fortunate that we didn't have the time to come up with the perfectly produced program. And so we just grabbed whatever tools were at hand and went ahead and did it. And that gets us over a hump a little bit. We're learning all kinds of new technology. I was talking to Brianna before we went on today about how we're both becoming video editors. Maybe she better than I, but it's like you use whatever tools you have available and try to make it approachable.
Reed, another thing too that I think is more fundamental about all of this is, for us at the beginning of the pandemic, we sat back and we thought about our mission, and we really tried to lean into mission critical things. So trying to cut away anything that didn't fall within that frame. And it was kind of a good exercise to look at everything we were doing and evaluate what truly was hitting the heart of who we are and why we matter. And that I hope that we will be able to continue on beyond the pandemic, because I think it helps us keep the mission, vision, values of the museum top of mind in everything that we do. And I know from just like the sector meetings with other nonprofits, that's been a really successful strategy for other people as well.
Yeah, and Kristin and Kaitlin are both nodding their heads. Yeah, I think that's true.
Same has happened with us. I just had a conversation with a coworker and we realized that really our jobs are so dissimilar now, that the daily activity of our jobs is so dissimilar from how it was before the pandemic. And just really sitting back and thinking it's been a very quick turnaround to inhabit that space, but keeping that front of mind, I mean, and also being responsive. I think that both Kaitlin, you and Brianna have been very responsive to communities' needs, and it has some to do with analytics, has some to do with kind of intuitive reaction, but that thinking about, we are going to be doing some training for classroom teachers and using the museum as a resource for classroom teachers in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. So just one example of trying to really address needs as they're coming up.
To Kristin's point, we are also looking here at the museum of using our second floor to potentially have high schoolers who don't have a place to have a warm space to be doing their homework. We're looking into partnering somehow with the school district and setting up socially distanced areas so that people can come and work on homework here. So we're really trying to figure out what the needs of the community are so that we can really help out the best way we can during this really tough time. So that maybe wouldn't be something we would have done in the past, but just figuring out what people actually need and how we can fulfill that for our community.
Fascinating. So if people are interested in finding out as you continue to develop, what's the best way to keep in touch with each of your organizations? Kaitlin?
To subscribe to our newsletter and to just follow us on social media. We share everything we're doing there. We try to be as communicative as possible about what we're doing. And then we also update our website quite frequently.
So Facebook is, or Instagram, or both?
Social media, and definitely join our newsletter, which you can do through our website.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Brianna? You need to unmute.
Yeah, same. I would say for us, it would be joining our e-newsletter and following us on social media, if that's your thing, or checking on our website because we update that pretty regularly. And I'm going to drop a link to the page on our website where you can sign up for our emails. And if you're inclined to do that, I encourage you. It's really fun. I promise you it's not a bunch of spam. It's a lot of great updates and some really fun historical content. So it's worth it.
Great. And Kristin?
I'm going to say same for us. On our homepage is an opportunity to sign up for the e-news. It's very selective about when those come out. Social media as well. And then I do invite people. I want to call out Carolyn for, Carolyn did reach out to me with some suggestions last week. So please feel free to also contact me. I'm the person who is the right person to talk to about things related to the Senior Center in particular. So program ideas, any kinds of links within the community. I just want to say too, I was on last week, kind of moderately unsuccessfully on my end, just due to connection issues, but there was one of the things that I've seen come out of this time through this platform is the breadth of conversation that's happening through the Senior Center. The conversation with Anne that was spearheaded by Anne Lovejoy last week really blew my socks off. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation that was coming up, the fact that it was open, accessible, and attended by a variety of ages. And I think that that's a really exciting direction that I know the Senior Center has set out in its comprehensive plan, and it's actually happening. And I think that I just want to give applause back to Reed for helping to shape that.
I think what Kaitlin said about us all helping to make this a strong community is correct. We all have different gifts to bring.
If you haven't been to the museum or any of our, well, at least BIMA and our museum, stop by. We'd love to see you. We miss seeing the faces of our community members. So swing by, just take a quick walk through and say hello.
Thanks for hosting, Reed.
You're welcome.